The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson was more than just a late-night show. It became a societal icon. It held people's attention for 30 years and made Johnny Carson a TV star. The stage was graced by A-list stars like Joan Rivers and Wayne Newton, who created unforgettable moments that kept people coming back for more. But there wasn't all smiles and laughing going on behind the scenes. Carson was known for having a short fuse that would sometimes go off, causing drama behind the scenes that would sometimes make its way to the public eye. One guest went too far in a shocking incident and was banned from the show for life for jumping a cue that not even the king of late night could ignore. John William Carson rose from humble beginnings to become a worldwide star. He was born on October 23, 1925 in Corning, Iowa, and grew up in small places in the Midwest before his family moved to Norfolk, Nebraska. Carson was good at making people laugh even when he was a child. When he was 12, he found a book on magic by accident, and it sparked his interest in performing. Soon enough he was surprising his family with card tricks. His mother saw how excited he was and sewed him a cape. By the time he was 14 he was acting as the great Carsoni, making a meager $3 per show. Carson's early drive and desire for excitement led him to Hollywood after high school. However, his path took an unexpected turn when he was fined $50 for pretending to be a midshipman. The story, which was told many times, made him more famous. He joined the U.S. Army in 1943, Navy during World War II. He was commissioned as an ensign and trained as an officer through the V-12 Navy College program. He served on the USS Pennsylvania and was in charge of breaking encrypted messages. Interestingly, he had an unbeaten 15-0-1 record as an amateur boxer while he was in the service. Most of his fights happened on the ship. Carson's most memorable moment in the Navy was when he did a magic trick for James Verstarstal, who was Secretary of the Navy. Carson said he was going to become a magician when asked if he meant to stay in the Navy. Forrestal pushed him to show what he could do, and Carson's quick-witted act stood out. His ability to make even the most serious people laugh proved itself at that moment. Carson used the military benefits for schooling to get into the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, after the war. At first he wanted to be a comedy writer and majored in journalism, but he quickly switched to speech and acting when he realized that radio was his true calling. His college thesis, How to Write Comedy for Radio, showed how he thought about humor analytically by including taped skits and descriptions of how to be funny. Because of the project, he was able to get his degree in radio and speech with a minor in physics in just 3 years. Carson's first big break as a radio host came in 1950, when he turned pro and joined WOW-AM and WOW TV in Omaha, Nebraska. His morning TV show, The Squirrel's Nest, showed off his sharp mind and love of satire. In one great section, pigeons were interviewed on the roof of the courthouse, which was a funny way to show how corrupt local politics are. He stood out because he could mix comedy with current events, and soon he was holding events in his own town. Rubbed shoulders with some of the people he made fun of on air. A lucky link through the wife of a fake politician led Carson to Los Angeles in 1951, where he got a job at KNXT, a TV station owned by CBS. From 1951 to 1953, he hosted Carson's Cellar, a sketch comedy show with a low budget that got the attention of well-known comics. Red Skelton, who hired Carson as a writer in 1953, was one of his fans. Skelton passed out right before a live show the next year, which was a surprise that led to Carson's big break. When he stepped in at the last minute, Carson showed that he could think quickly and keep the crowd entertained. Another famous comedian, Jack Benny, saw Carson's ability and asked him to join his show in 1955. Imitating Benny's moves, jokingly accused the veteran comic of copying him. Benny later talked about this incident when he predicted Carson's success as a comedian. Carson led a number of shows in the 1950s, such as the game show Earn Your Vacation, 1954, and the variety show The Johnny Carson Show, How to Change Your Job Show. Early in the 1960s, late-night TV was still getting used to its new home. Steve Allen was the first host of NBC's Tonight Show in 1954. He was a smart guy who laid the groundwork for what would become the classic American talk show. When Allen quit in 1957, Jack Paar took over. He gave the show a more personal and sometimes surprising style. But by 1962, Tonight needed a new show. NBC was also interested in Johnny Carson, who was becoming a big star. Carson was well known from the show Who Do You Trust, where his sense of humor and charm made him one of the most sought-after TV stars. But he wasn't sure when NBC first offered him the job. It seemed impossible to interview celebrities for 105 minutes every night and keep the whole country amused. Famous people such as Groucho Marx, Jackie Gleason, Bob Newhart, and Joey Bishop had already turned down the part. But NBC kept trying, and in early 1962, finally gave in and signed on. Carson couldn't take over right away because he still had 6 months left on his deal with ABC. Marx, Merv Griffin, Jerry Lewis, and Donald O'Connor were just a few of the guest hosts who kept Tonight going until Carson's long-awaited start on October 1, 1962. It wasn't easy at first to make the change. Carson wasn't sure if he could run the show, and his first year was full of growth pains. But as he got used to the job, he started to change late-night TV by using humor, wit, and a great knack for making even the worst guests look good. Carson is the best because he is smart and can stay alive, as Billy Wilder once said about him. He charms sick people, people who can't sleep, and people who have to get up early. He is the worst thing that could happen to a country. What kind of jerks are on the show doesn't matter. He has to make them funny and interesting. He has to take care of them and be their nurse. Every night he has to do the salto mortale in front of a huge crowd. Plus he does it without a net. Carson wasn't just in charge of a show. He was forming a group of people. When he took over as host of The Tonight Show, it had a refined framework that would become the standard for late-night TV. Carson's longtime partner from Who Do You Trust, Ed McMahon, joined as his announcer and sidekick, saying "Here's Johnny," which has become a famous opening line. The NBC orchestra was led by Skitch Henderson, who added musical breaks that gave the show its own unique beat. As the first thing on each show, Carson's introduction, a nightly ritual, was sharp and funny. If a joke didn't work, he was good at coming up with a funny thing about himself. A silly soft shoe dance to Tea for Two, played by the band, was one of his favorite moves. It turned a mistake into a laugh right away. Another trick was to close the mic and leave a blank space. People shopping at Kmart, "Please clean up aisle 4. His easy charm and ability to make things up on the spot made even the worst situations fun. Carson's ghost golf swing, a small unhurried movement that became a charming signature, was a big part of his monologue. Guest hosts would sometimes make fun of it. For example, Bob Newhart once pretended to roll a bowling ball instead. Johnny's theme, the show's theme music, was written by Paul Anka, and based on his older song Toot Sweet. He wrote lyrics for The Tonight Show before he took over, but they were never used. Because of this, he was due to 50% of the performance royalties. From Carson's first show in 1962, to his last one on May 22, 1992, that theme didn't change. In the beginning, The Tonight Show was shot at NBC's main office, in 30 Rockefeller Plaza, New York. On May 1, 1972, the show made a big move, moving to California's Burbank. The move brought the show closer to Hollywood, which made it easier to get big-name celebrities to appear. Carson's power over the formula grew as his popularity did. In 1980, he cut back on hosting to 4 nights a week, letting a different group of people take over on Mondays. The episodes were taped in Burbank at 5:30 p.m. and sent by satellite to the Central and Eastern time zones at 11:30 p.m. People in Pacific time got a later feed at 11:30 p.m. It was their time. Johnny Carson's The Tonight Show was more than just a late-night show by the late 1970s. It was an important part of American TV. Carson had an undeniable effect on comedy, celebrity society, and broadcasting. And it didn't just happen in the studio. Before he left The Tonight Show in April 1979, Johnny Carson had been the host for 17 years. His announcements sent shockwaves through the entertainment business. Back then, the show was more than just a late-night favorite. It made NBC a lot of money, about 17% of their pre-tax profits, and was a huge success. Because he was so valuable to the network, talks moved quickly. And by May 1980, he had agreed to a new 3-year deal that changed his role and the show itself. The show's length was cut from 90 minutes to 60 minutes, and Carson only hosted 3 nights a week. To make up for this, Tom Snyder's shift tomorrow was stretched by 30 minutes. Carson was still TV's biggest star, even though his workload was lighter. Because he wasn't on as much, NBC added a group of guest hosts. From 1983 to 1986, Joan Rivers was the show's regular guest host. After she